Hello friends, welcome to Get Your Play Online's Arts and Crafts. I'm Lindy and today I am going to be teaching you how to make these awesome back to school paper squishies. Since I know a lot of people are going back to school this month and we have a really fun theme of back to school for Get Your Play Online, I thought these would be so much fun to make because I love school supplies. I think they're so much fun to get brand new school supplies for school, and I love squishies because they are so much fun to squish in and feel them swell back up. So I thought it would be awesome to learn how to make them out of paper and make them into the shape of school supplies. So I've made some to show you, and I've got a glue bottle and I've got a fun calculator with a little face on it today. And the awesome thing about these is that once I show you how to make them, you can make them in any shape you want. So you could go back and make whatever kind of school supply is your favorite, maybe a pencil or a really fun notebook or something like that. And you could make some that even are in other shapes other than school supplies. You could make one in like emoji shapes would be fun. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you all the awesome things that we're going to be using to make our back to school paper squishies. So the first thing that we're going to be needing is paper because we're going to be drawing our shape. We're going to need at least 2 sheets because we have a back and a front. You might want to get an extra one just in case we make any mistakes or you don't really like your first drawing. Sometimes it takes me a couple tries to get a drawing that I really like. And that brings us to our next thing, a pencil with a good eraser, and that way we can always go back and erase if we make any mistakes. That's why I love pencils so much. And then we are going to get to pick what colors we want to make our paper squishy. So we're going to want something that you can color with. You can use really anything that colors. So I've got a couple of things here. I've got markers and colored pencils and crayons. But if you just have one of those, that's cool. Or if you want to kind of mix and match and use different kind of coloring supplies for yours, I might do that too. So grab some of these in your favorite colors. And then we're going to be needing our scissors to be cutting the extra paper away. And I just want to remind you that scissors they're sharp, and we want to make sure that we don't hurt ourselves. So make sure to ask your parents before you're using your scissors. Just make sure that you have permission to use them, and maybe if you need, they can always supervise you while you're using our scissors. Just make sure that we're being super safe because we love to be safe here at Get Your Play Online. Then we are going to need something to stuff our squishies with, so something that's going to go inside. And what I found that works really well, that most people should have in their house already, are these plastic grocery bags. And I thought this was so great because it's a great way to recycle them. So that way we're using them for something instead of throwing away, we're using them for something fun to use for our arts and crafts supplies. So we're going to be ripping these into little pieces, and that's going to be using the inside to make our squishy squish. And I'm really curious to think if you guys can think of any other things that might be able to make our squishy squish that we put inside. I've been thinking what else we could use, and I'm curious to know your thoughts. And then our last thing that we need, you can see the shiny stuff on the outside of my paper squishy, and that is tape. And I have my tape. Oh, there it is. This is packing tape, or some people might call it cello tape, and it is clear. Pull some out. So you can see it's clear. You could, if you don't have any of this, you can totally use regular old tape too. The reason I like this tape is because it's a little bit shinier. So I like the shiny look, but also because it's thicker than regular tape, and that way we don't have to take as many pieces of other tape. But you can use either kind of tape, whichever kind you have. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We've got to put a little bit of music on for while we're making our paper squishy. And so the one that I'm going to be teaching you how to make today is this fun calculator with the math. But like I said, once you know how to make them, you can go back and make the glue bottle or any other kind that you want to make, whatever your favorite school supply is. So let's go ahead and grab our paper, and we're just going to be using one piece right now. We're going to put it down on our table and take our pencil, and I'm going to push my laptop down so that you can see what I'm drawing. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to be drawing is this main outline of our calculator. So it's kind of like a square shape, and it's about as tall as a can of soup is. So if you think about how big a can of soup is, I'm sure you've had some soup before, it's about that tall. So we're going to make our first line, the up and down line, about as tall as a can of soup. I'm going to take my pencil, and up and down line about as tall as a can of soup. Okay. Show you. Got it right there. And then we're going to make our second line on the other side of the paper going up and down the exact same height as the first piece that we made. So we're drawing our square. I want to know, what is your favorite back to school supply that you like to get for going back to school? I think my favorite was always, I loved notebooks. I loved going to the dollar store and getting some really fun colors. My favorite color is blue, so I loved getting blue notebooks. And maybe gel pens. Those are so much fun too. So I'm so curious, what is your favorite back to school supply? What's your favorite one to get? Or maybe if you already went back to school, what was the favorite one that you got this year? I would love to know. Make sure to let me know in the comments. All right, let's go ahead and make our second line. So this one's going to be the same height. So just about the size of a soup can. And it's also going to go up and down. Perfect. So now all we have to do is to connect the bottom lines together and the top lines together. And I'm going to make my edges. So if you notice on my calculator here, they're a little bit curved. So they're not straight down, but you can make your calculator straight, like a kind of more of a sharp curve if you want. So I'm going to make mine a little bit of a curved line. I'm going to find where my line ended. I'm just going to make curve, almost like this, a C shape, like the letter C. Starting to go the other direction, and now I'm just going to keep drawing that line all the way until I get to the other side and make another C shape, or almost like an L. There you go. All right, so now we're going to do it on this side. So I'm going to curve this way all the way to the other side. Maybe you're even drawing with a really fun back to school pencil. Mine's kind of plain Jane. Okay, here we go. We've got the outline of our calculator. See? So the next thing that we're going to make is the face of the calculator. So when you type in on the buttons, the part where all the numbers will come up, that's what we're going to be making. But my calculator is a cute little face, so they're going to have a face come up instead of numbers. So we are going to be making a rectangle shape, so just like a square, but kind of a little bit flatter and longer than a square. And we're going to be doing it on the top part of our calculator. I'm going to leave a little bit of space. So we've got this line, and then where the line that we're about to draw, it's going to be about as much as the eraser of a pencil. So if I put my eraser up, it's about that much space in between. Okay, or maybe like the size of an M&M. That's another good way to put it. So let's push our paper down. So I'm going to find my top line. Here's my top line. And then I'm going to pretend there's an M&M sitting right at that line. And where the bottom of the M&M is, that's where I'm going to draw my line for the top of my calculator's face. Get a new song come up. Okay. So I'm going to make it go across. And then I'm going to leave about the same amount of space on the side, about the size of an M&M, maybe a tiny bit bigger. I'm going to go down, and that line is going to be about the size of have you ever had those lifesavers? Like about the size of a lifesaver. That's about how long we're going to make this line right here. You could totally make it longer if you want. This one I made a little bit longer. This one I'm going to make a little bit shorter. Size of that. I'm going to curve it again. And then connect my other lines. Okay. Let's check it out. Let me see yours. How's yours looking so far? We've got a calculator face. Looking good. Okay, so what do you notice next on my paper squishy calculator? We've got lots of buttons here. So let's count them and see how many we have. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have 12 small square buttons. And then I've got these other buttons on the side for like plus and minus and turning it on and off. So I'm going to be doing 3 buttons, kind of bigger shaped buttons. But let's first do these 12 right here. So they're going to be, we're going to have 3 across and 4 down. And they are going to be just a little bit bigger than an M&M, and they're going to be square shaped. So what I kind of like to do is kind of just really lightly do the first 4 down to see if I think that's the right of kind of where they should sit. I'm going to make my line. I'm going to do the ones down to make sure I have room for all 4, and if not, I've always got my handy dandy eraser that I can use and go back and try again. So I'm doing those 4 square shaped buttons. So I'm going to show you, I drew it really, really lightly so that I can always go back and erase. But if you can notice there, I've got my 4 square shaped buttons. So I have space. If you did your 4th one and you couldn't quite fit it and you want it to have a little bit more space, you can always erase and try again. And then what you should probably do if they couldn't fit is make a little bit less space in between each button. So if your buttons were kind of so if your buttons had this much space in between them, then maybe you'll erase and you'll try them with less space like this. Okay, so I'm going to make, while you're making sure that yours are great, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit darker line on my buttons so that you can see them better. Okay, so now that we've got our first row of 4 buttons, now we're going to do 2 more across. So I'm going to put 1 right about here in the middle, and 1 right here, and then remember we want to leave a little bit of space on the side for those other buttons that do things like turn it off and on, and plus and minus, so that we can add and subtract. So we want to make sure we have a little bit of space, so think about that in your mind, that you're kind of taking up a little space there. You could even lay maybe a marker. You could lay the marker right there on your paper so that helps you remember that space is taken. So we're going to do that. I'm going to put my marker down and show you. So I've got my marker kind of in that space that I'm going to be doing those other buttons, those bigger buttons, so that it helps me think about how much space I really have to do my other 2 square buttons. I'm going to do 1 right about here. And 1 right about here. We've got 4 down and 3 across, and we've got plenty of space left for our other buttons. So now what we're going to do is just fill in these rows. So we're going to make 3 more buttons, 1, 2, 3 down, and then under this last row, 3 more, 1, 2, 3. So let's go ahead and fill these last rows in with 3 buttons and 3 buttons. Same shapes. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this back here just to help remind myself. Okay, so we've got that row. And one more button. All right, let's show each other our 12 buttons. Awesome, these look great. Okay, so now we're gonna put some of those other buttons that are so much fun to press on calculators that do some cool things like add and subtract. And this one is gonna be my on and off button. And then this one down here is the equals button. So what I'm going to do, and you can make yours any shape that you want because we have some space now on the side of our calculator for these. So you're going to choose any 3 shapes that you want for these buttons to put on the side of your calculator. I'm going to be doing them just like I did on this. So this one is a rectangle, so it's longer and it's kind of up and down. And then this one is just kind of similar to my other buttons that we made before. And then this one is kind of a thin rectangle that goes across. So one rectangle that goes up and down, one that's just the same as our other button that we made before, and one that's going across. But like I said, if you want to make a triangle, you can make a triangle-shaped button. If you want to make a star-shaped button, so you think of any kind of button shapes that you want your calculator to have for some of those other kind of buttons that are on calculators that aren't just numbers. Okay, so I'm making my first one, the up and down rectangle, so it's going to be kind of like my pencil, up and down like this. Okay, here I've got my first one, the up and down rectangle. And now I'm going to do kind of more of the regular square that we made before. And then my last one is going to be a thin rectangle that goes across. So I'm holding my pencil across, so it's going to be a rectangle that goes that way. So let's check it out and compare it to the one that we made earlier. So now we've got all of our buttons drawn and we are ready to put what they do on them. So if you'll notice, the first ones are all numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we have a 0 so that we can make our 10 later. And then I've got times and X, and then this little symbol that means divide. So we are going to go ahead and number them. So I want you to do the first ones that we did, 1, 2, 3. So let's do that row and write our numbers on them. Make a 1, and the next one a 2, and then a 3. And then moving down, remember we're going to leave this one blank because that's going to be something that's not numbers. So we're going to go to our next row and do 4, 5, 6. And then the next row, with these 3 buttons, we're going to do 7, 8, 9. Remembering to leave this final row, all those buttons empty, because they're not going to be numbers. 7, 8, 9. Okay. Now, we are going to do the one right under the 9. We're going to make that a 0. So there's the 9 right below it. That one turns into a 0, kind of like the shape O. And then our next one that we're going to do is, this one is for when you do multiplication, and it's a times number, and it looks like the letter X. So if you haven't done multiplication in school yet, and you're not sure what that symbol is, we're just going to make the letter X. So that one's right below our 7. Do you guys like math? Do you like to use calculators? I bet you're great at math. Okay, so right below the 7, I'm making my X shape. And then below the 8, this one is for when we're going to do division. So that's the symbol to help us use the calculator to divide stuff. And if we haven't done any math like this yet and you're not sure what this symbol is, let's practice making it on a new sheet so that we know how to make it. So first we're going to draw just a line going across. So I'm going to do it in a different, I'm going to do it in marker so you can see it a little bit better. So you can practice yours in pencil, but just so you can see, I'm going to use my marker. So we're going to do this line that goes across, just like that. And then we're going to put 2 dots, one below and one above our line, right about in the middle. So let's find the middle. So I think the middle of my line is like right about there. So I'm going to go up a little bit above it and do a dot. Just like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing below. So right about the middle, go down a little bit, and make a dot. And there we go. Now we know how to make that symbol. So let's go ahead and put it on our button. And that one's going to go right below the number 8. Like, and my pencil again, I almost misplaced it. Okay, so let's make that line that's going across. And then we've got the dot above and the dot below. Awesome. Now, we're going to make our plus for adding. Yep. Right there. And the minus for subtracting. So this one is kind of like the letter, a lowercase t. And this one is just a line going side to side. So let's put that on our first button. Right there, the first T button. So we're going to make that lowercase t shape for the plus. And then on the bottom part, we're going to do that minus line. So just a line, kind of just like this pencil going across. Just a plain old line. And then on this one, the one right below it is going to be our on-off button. So I've noticed on my calculators it says AC for that. If you want to write on, you could do that too, an O-N. So let's do that. Let's write the word on so you can see. So it's going to be an O. You can't see as well, huh? It's kind of dark. These are awesome markers, by the way. Like they have a thick shape on one side that's darker, and then on the other, it's a thin line that is a little bit lighter. I just got these. These are school supply that I'm excited about because I just got these pretty recently. These are my fun markers. Maybe I'll have to make a paper squishy of markers. Oh, you gave me a great idea. Okay, so we've got our letter O. And then I'm going to do an N. You could do a lowercase or a capital. we go. And it looks, I think it might look backwards too, but that was first. All right, so we're gonna do that on this button. We're almost ready to color. Color is one of my favorite parts of any arts and crafts. I just love to color things in. I think it's so relaxing. And then on the very bottom one, the last one that's empty, we're gonna make an equal sign. So that one is 2 across lines, one right under the other. So one line, and then right under the next one is another across line. So just like that line we made earlier across for the subtract sign, we do the same thing, and then another line right below it. It looks just like that. Okay, so let's check out our calculators now that all our buttons are done. Nice. Whoop, there we go. Awesome. I can't wait to see what your calculator is looking like so far. So I made a face in my calculator, and I think it's really fun with the face. But you can choose if you want to leave your calculator empty. Maybe you want to put some numbers on there, or maybe you want to make a message like hi to somebody, a friend at school. Maybe you want to make one for a present for your friend, and you're going to write hi to that person. So you can put anything you want into that face of that calculator that a lot of times has all the numbers once you've done your fun calculations for your math. So I'm going to be doing this face, and the first thing that I'm going to do is find about the middle of the face of my calculator, and I'm going to be making a small U shape. So where's the middle? I think the middle of my calculator face is right about here, and I'm going to be doing a U shape for a smiley mouth. I guess you could make a sad calculator if you wanted, or you could make it wearing sunglasses, or maybe like a tongue sticking out, like that kind of calculator. So there's got my smiley U. And now I'm going to be making my eyes. They're just going to be circles, and they're just about the size of an M&M or a Skittle. And they're just right where the top of my smiley mouth is. That's where my eye is. And I like to leave, when I color my eye in, I like to leave, that music is really loud. I like to leave a little bit of white in there. Just like we have like a circle of colors, and then we have our black dot. I'm making a dot that has white in my calculator eyes. So let's find right where the smiley mouth ends. Right above that, I'm going to be making to the side. On both sides, I'm going to be making my my circle that's about the size, maybe just a touch smaller than an M&M. And then on the other side, and then I'm going to go ahead and make that tiny little circle on the inside that doesn't have any color, that's white. I'm going to make that in there. So just a teeny tiny little circle in the inside of the circle that you just drew. That will help me remember not to color there. All right, let's check them out so far. What do we got? Looking great. I can't wait to see what our paper squishies turn out like. So our next step is to pick out the colors that we want to use. So for this one that I did before, I used gray for the outline of my calculator's face, and for the inside of it, I used black for the eyes. I used a purple outline, and then purple inside, and a pinky purple for inside the buttons. So that you could use those colors if you want yours to look just like the one that I made, or you could pick out any colors that you want. So I want your calculator to be as unique as you are. So make sure that you pick out whatever colors that you love. If you could get a calculator in any color, what color would it be? What would your perfect back-to-school supply calculator look like? Maybe you'd even have designs on there. Maybe you'd have one with like stars in it or hearts. So anything you want. Or maybe you have like a sports team that you love and you want to do it those colors. I think I'm going to do similar colors that I did before. So I'm going to grab my gray and black and my purple and then that pinky purple. And I'm also going to be using, I just like these ones to be a little bit lighter, the inside of the face and this part. So I'm going to grab crayons to help make it a little bit lighter, or you could also use colored pencil. But like I said, you can use the same, you could use crayons for the whole thing, you could use colored pencils for the whole thing, you could use markers for the whole thing, so you don't have to use different kinds of coloring things. I just happen to have all of these, so I'm excited to use them. So I'm going to get my gray and see if I can find my purple. Purple's always tough to find in crayons because it looks kind of dark. It almost looks like black from above. Okay, so first thing that I'm going to do is take my purple marker and make the outline that goes all the way around my calculator. So the very first thing that we drew, let's go ahead and trace that line. So we're going to go right exactly over where we drew before with our marker. We're going to try to go exactly over that line. There we go. Got the outline of my calculator. Next thing that I'm going to outline is the face of my calculator. So I'm going to be using gray. You choose what you want to use. And I'm going to do this rectangle shape that we made for the face of our calculator. First I got to put them back on. What are you most excited about for school this year? Are you excited to see your friends? Or is there something really fun that you're excited to learn? Like maybe you're in the grade that you get to start using cursive. That's always fun to learn. Or maybe you know that you're going to start learning how to multiply and divide, and that's something you're excited for. I'd love to hear what you're super excited for this school year. I'm just taking my gray and following that line that we made before. And then let's go ahead and do our buttons. So I'm going to be using this pinky purple color, and I'm going to go ahead and outline all of my buttons and then go ahead and just color those in. See, we're going to do the outline of all of these buttons and go ahead and color those in. got all of them outlined, and now I'm just going to go ahead and color them in. Back and forth motion with my marker. Until I can't see any more of the white inside my button. And then go on to the next one. Alright, how are you coming with your buttons? I've got about half of mine colored in so far. I think coloring is so relaxing. I'm on my last button, just being careful to stay in the lines. Alright, let's check out our buttons. They look great. Okay, so next is time to color in inside of our face. So I'm going to be doing gray all inside this gray rectangle that we made earlier. I'm going to use my gray, turn this down a little more. I'm going to be using my gray crayon. That way I can still see through to my drawing that I did of my face and my eyes, so that we can use that to trace our fun little smiley face and eyes when we make our face for our calculator in a minute with our black marker. Just coloring back and forth, making sure to stay in the lines if I can. And then my purple color I'm going to be using to color in all of the rest of everything else that's white on my calculator. I'm using that purple crayon so that it's maybe a little bit lighter, but if you want yours to be nice and bright, you could definitely use markers. Right, now that it's all colored in, the last thing we have to do is write. We're going to take a marker or crayon and trace over all of those pencil marks that we made for our face and for all of the numbers and symbols that we did on our buttons. So I like to use something a little bit darker to make sure it shows up. So I'm going to be using a darker purple or black on all of these lines. And then I'm going to be using black here. And you could choose any color that you wanted for your face, but I think if it's if you used whatever you used, I think it's good to use something brighter or darker so that it shows up. So I'm going to be doing my eyes first. So I'm going to take my black and use my marker and just trace over that happy you face that we made. So we already made the hard part with our pencil, so now all we have to do is trace with whatever color we wanted to use. Now I'm doing the circle line, the second circle line, and now I just have to color in my circles. So remember, I like to use that little tiny circle inside that's still white. So I'm going to leave that one little tiny circle we made earlier not colored in, but you could choose if you wanted to make it a different color, that tiny circle, or maybe you want to just go ahead and color it in so your whole big circle, the size of the M&M, is colored in. Same color as the whole eye. And then for my letters and numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, my 0, my divide symbol, the X for the time, equals those two lines that are across, my on button, minus that line that's going across, and my plus that looks like a lowercase t. Alright, time for our big reveal. What does your calculator look like? I love it. I think it's so cute. Okay, so now that we have our drawing, we are ready to turn it into a paper squishy. So now is the time that we are going to need that second piece of paper that I told you about earlier. So we're going to grab a second piece of paper and we are going to grab our scissors. Handy dandy scissors. And remember, these are sharp, so we want to be super careful with these and make sure that if you forgot to ask for permission before, go back and ask an adult to make sure that you are able to use your scissors, or if you need maybe someone to watch, and just make sure that you're being super safe with your scissors, and our clear tape or our packing tape. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to cut this shape out, but we're going to leave a lot of the paper still. So I don't want to get super close to my purple line. I'm just kind of getting rid of some of the extra paper. So I'm just kind of making the white paper around it smaller. Than it was before. And I'm going to lay my calculator right on top of my second piece of paper. I'm going to lay it right down on top. Grab my clear tape, pull off a piece, and we want the piece to be a little bit longer than the paper that our calculator is on. And I'm going to pull off a piece, and I'm going to lay it, and I want to make sure I start over the purple line. So it's going over the calculator. So we're going to tape more than just the calculator. We're going to tape the space around it too. And I'm going to lay it flat and use my fingers to try to get it as flat as you can. So I got a few little wrinkles in mine, and that's no big deal, but I'm going to try my best to do it without wrinkles on the other couple pieces. And then we're going to do exactly what we just did, but this time we're going to keep laying them so that they overlap a little bit. And overlapping means that they're not just touching side by side, that one piece of the tape is over top. So we're going to pretend these are tape instead of squishies. One is over top of the other a little bit to make sure that all of our space is covered. So we're going to grab another piece of our tape and go over top the last piece just a tiny bit and do our best to make it super flat with as few wrinkles as we can. And we're going to keep doing that until our entire calculator is covered. And if you don't have this type of tape, you're going to be doing the exact same thing with your regular old tape. It's just going to take you a little bit longer because that tape is thinner. So instead of 3 or 4 pieces, you might have to do like 15 pieces of tape. So I've got my last piece of tape. And use those fingers to make it nice and flat. Okay, so let's check it out. So I've got tape so you can see that it's nice and shiny all over the front of my calculator. So now what I'm going to do is use my scissors, and this time I'm going to be cutting right along the line of my calculator, the bottom line. Take my scissors and cut right along that bottom line. And the great thing is, I've got my other piece of paper under there, and that's perfect because we're going to be turning our calculator into something we can put stuff in. So we need a second piece. We need a top and a bottom. So we're going to use our tape again, and we are going to be taping this bottom edge together. So make sure it's longer than your calculator bottom. And I'm going to lay it across the front of the bottom of my calculator. And then I'm going to pick it up and turn it over and wrap that piece of tape. So there's the sticky side. And I'm wrapping it over to the back. Perfect. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut out the rest of my calculator because we've already attached 2 sides, so the paper is going to stay together. And so I'm going to just cut out the rest of my calculator all around the edges. Perfect. So we've got our calculator, and it's stuck together with that tape. Now we need to tape all of the rest of the sides except for one. It's really important that we leave one side open because that's what we're going to be using to turn it into our squishy, to put the stuff inside to make it squishy. So let's repeat the same thing we did with our tape a second ago on 2 more sides, but make sure we don't do all 4. I'm taping, laying across the front. I'm going to do the 2 sides, and I'm going to leave the top open. Flatten it, and pick it up, turn it over. There we go. And I'm going to just cut off any extra that's kind of sticking out. And then my second side, or my third side. Lay it across the side on the front, turn it over, wrap it around, use your fingers to flatten, and cut off any of that extra tape that you might have sticking out. Okay, now I've got my fun little calculator. Oh, I think I just did the same side twice, so I've got to do one more. I wrapped the same side 2 times. Sometimes that happens when we're doing arts and crafts on. Flat, look, there you go, I can see. Flat on the front. Wrap it around. And cut the extra. Now, I've got a little pocket. And we're ready to stuff our paper squishy to make it a squishy. So we're going to be using our paper bag, and I either want you to rip it into little tiny strips that are about that wide, or you could use your scissors. And while we're doing this, I'm wondering, what else do you think might be good for the inside of a paper squishy? So just be super careful with our scissors again to not get them into our fingers. I'm just going to rip. And I'm going to use my fingers too to rip it up. And rip it into shreds. So I was thinking if you had an old toy that was maybe some of the stuffing was falling out, maybe you could use the stuffing from that inside your squishy. Or maybe a sponge. You could cut a sponge into little pieces. So what else have you thought about that you could maybe use for your squishy? If you ever make another one, what do you think might make it squish and then come back open? Like a really nice squish feeling to your paper squishy. Okay, so I've got some pieces right here, and I am ready. All that we're going to do is just take them one at a time and push them way down into the bottom of our squishy. So I'm just going to keep stuffing my paper squishy with my recycled paper bags until it's totally full. And I think I need maybe 1 or 2 more pieces. I'm going to rip off. I've still got a little bit of space at the top. Do 1 more. This is so much fun to rip. Almost as fun as it is to squish a squishy. Okay, so now I've got mine nice and full of all of its squishy stuff. You can kind of get a feel of the squish. And what I'm going to do is use my fingers like a pinching motion between my pointer finger and my thumb to hold the top together. And I'm going to go ahead and get a piece of tape first, as long as the top of my calculator is. I always do it a little bit longer just to make sure. I'm going to put it on the side, take my fingers, get my little pinchies, hold it together, and I'm going to take my tape, and I am going to make sure push it down so you can see. Make sure that nice and lined up at the top with the bottom paper. And I'm going to put my piece of tape, just like we did before, all the way across the front. And turn it over and wrap that tape around to the back. And then I've got some extra tape sticking out the sides, so I'm going to go ahead and cut off my extra. Okay, now the best part about paper squishies, you get to squish them. You get to make them be nice and flat, and then watch as they slowly get nice and puffy again. I love the feeling of these, and one great thing about these paper squishies is that sometimes using these fidget toys that are great for to kind of push around your hands and they feel really fun, they can actually help us concentrate at school. So they can help us pay attention, and sometimes they can even help us if we're feeling lots of nervous feelings in our body. They can help us to feel more relaxed. So I thought these would be so great for the first day of school because they would maybe help you pay a lot of attention to your teacher so that you can rock the school year. And if you're feeling at all nervous, which is totally normal, everybody feels nervous on their first day of something new, that maybe this would help you with some of those feelings. So I hope you had a great time making these paper squishies with me, and now that you know how to make them, you can make them in any shape that you want. So you could do your very favorite school supply, maybe a glue bottle or a gel pen or something fun, or you could do something totally different like a dinosaur. And if you don't love to color and draw the shape, you could actually print out a shape. If you have a printer at home, you could print out a shape instead, and then you can follow the rest of the steps to make a paper squishy that way. Or even maybe you could stuff a candy bar or a chip bag with something that you think will be a great squishy material. And I can't wait to hear about all of the ways that you experiment to see what the best kind of squish might be for inside your paper squishies. Maybe you want to try to cut up a sponge or one of those old toys to take out some of the fluff that might be falling out and see if that one feels better than the plastic bag to you that we used. So I want to hear all about it. Make sure that you show me a picture of how yours turned out in the comments below, and let me know what your favorite school supply is, and if you end up experimenting and finding what the best inside to your paper squishy is. I'm really dying to know what your creative minds come up with and what you think is the best feel to those paper squishies. And I hope you have a fantastic first month or first day of the new school year, and we will see you next time at Get Your Play Online for arts and crafts at 1 and 5 on Sundays. All right, bye friends. See you next time.